correct. But I think some Canadians might say, how are you going to take on Trump when you couldn't even get your message across to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau?
Well, I mean, there are many times when I did and was very successful at it, but I've also been the government
to your own
house
admission,
leader.
No one was listening.
Well, no.
This Trump tariff situation has officially reached peak stupidity, peak incompetence, truly. Though I'm not surprised at all. In fact, I've come to expect this type of a reaction from our Liberal government here in Canada. A couple of other stories to get through today as well. One in particular is just so ironic and awesome. I cannot wait for you to see that. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts down below. And of course, give me a follow on other social media platforms as well.
It's not just the CBC, right? It's all the people that we deal with, that we support, that we commission content.
If he follows through with his plan to cut all funding for English language CBC, what is plan B?
So the part that's appropriations, that's government money, is 1.4 billion. That's a lot of money. I understand these are big numbers, but it supports all of what we do. And so $1 billion, considering that he's talking about CBC, the math just doesn't work because, you know, there's not much left for French services. If we are imagining like that we are going to go forward with only French, the math just doesn't work. There's a serious risk that it would, in fact, cripple not only the English service, but also the French service. So,
I mean, there's a couple really important things to note here. Number one being that the most watched content on the CBC is not their news, actually. It's other content that they have, like other shows that are on there. So how is that going to impact Canadians? I don't know. Maybe they get a streaming service that also plays some of those shows. At the end of the day, if you're a business, you need to be competitive. And if you aren't, you have to do what businesses do and close your doors, right? Or adapt and adjust and change the situation there. Marie-Philippe Bouchard, she's the CEO of CBC Radio Canada, is calling for a national conversation on the promise to defund and is launching a tour right now to get it started. And here's an interesting part. She also questioned whether it would help Canada to take away that component of our identity, adding that defunding CBC could erode a pillar of Canada's cultural identity. What? What the hell does the CBC have to do with Canada's cultural identity?
And I'm cautiously optimistic. But meanwhile, like I've mentioned many, many times, while we're doing that work, we're also ready to retaliate should they decide to impose unfair tariffs against Canadians.
Moving on to Trump tariffs, you know, it really does make me laugh how all of the Liberals campaigning right now for the leadership race that we just really shouldn't have are all saying the same thing, like, oh, well, you know, we had 9 years to listen to you and we didn't. We did not listen to you, but we're gonna listen to you now. Well, if you've had a change of heart, you clearly have not improved your listening skills at all.
Fresh insight today from Commerce Secretary nominee Howard Lutnick, signaling to U.S. senators that Canada could still avoid the tariffs expected this weekend.
This tariff model is simply to shut their borders with respect America. If we are your biggest trading partner, show us the respect, shut your border, and end fentanyl coming into this country.
Lutnick said if Canada and Mexico clamp down on what he called the micro issue of cross-border security, tariffs may not be needed. But a broader study on trade practices due April 1st is happening, meaning Canada should still brace for tariffs in the spring.
That's not the ordinary tariff. The ordinary tariffs need to be studied and examined, and that will start, as the EO said, in April.
So Donald Trump says initially, I'm going to impose these tariffs on you because we want your DRUGs out of our country and we want you to secure your borders. He laid out the roadmap. He literally said, here's what you got to do and you'll get out of it. Has Canada done anything, really, to meet that roadmap. Sure, they announced a $1.3 billion border protection plan that includes detecting and disrupting fentanyl trade, new tools for law enforcement, operational coordination, information sharing, minimizing unnecessary border volumes. But this plan is over the course of the next 6 years. Like, this is just another blinking light over how unbelievably incompetent the Trudeau government is. Trump says, I need you guys to do this by Inauguration Day. And then he goes and pushes it back. I need you to do this by February 1st. And Trudeau says, hold my beer. The best we can do is 6 years. I have some pretty eye-opening information for you as well about those numbers, but let's just listen to what David McGuinty has to say first and foremost.
Canada's border is strong, and we're making it stronger. Our recent plan, announced only several months ago, is the largest single investment in Canadian history on the Canadian border. But when our largest ally raises concerns, we take it seriously. Our approach to the American administration is a simple one. We have a choice. We can either win and win, or we can lose and lose. But I want to make it very clear one more time, then I'll open it to questions. Our border is strong, and we're making it even stronger. And it's important for Canadians to understand on this fentanyl question, Canada is responsible for less than 1% of fentanyl entering the United States.
McGuinty reiterates that this is the largest investment that we have ever made on the border in Canada's history. Well, we sent $20 billion to Ukraine in a year. We have lost over $32 billion from COVID relief. We have lost $93 billion by Catherine McKenna. And we have granted them $1.3 billion over the course of 6 years. The facts are facting right here. And to say that our borders are secure and strong, well, that completely contradicts some of the recent press conferences that we've had detailing how much people have taken advantage of our borders. We have tens of thousands of students that are completely unaccounted for who were supposed to go back home and the government has no idea where they are. Why? Because, well, they're probably in the United States. Let's be real. Our border is secure and it's getting stronger. Well, that's weird because how did that whole situation with that bus that happened in Toronto recently, and there were several others before and after that one as well, that were also busted of people who came here that had very deep ties to certain organizations that were plotting our demise. And how can we forget what was just in the news not so long ago when the US were the ones who broke the news that TD Bank was laundering money for the cartel. And according to US Border Services, which they publish reports on this stuff every quarter, 87% of individuals who are on the terror watch list have tried to enter the USA from Canada's land borders. And it just seems kind of ridiculous to me that the Canadian government could so confidently say, oh, well, it's only 1% coming from Canada. There is no way to know that because of how careful and smart people doing these things are. There was one of the biggest busts that ever happened in Australia's history not very long ago. That was a shipment from Canada to Australia. Like, obviously, organized crime is absolutely happening here. Our own Toronto Dominion Bank is laundering money for them. And there have been a lot of reports of transnational crime organizations who are using Canada as a base to manufacture and distribute what they are doing. What's worse is a lot of Canadians aren't even familiar with half of the information that I just shared with you. And why do you think that is? Well, maybe because things like the CBC exist, and a lot of Canadians get pushed the government narrative where they just hide stories like that in the background. They don't make a big deal out of them. What they do make a big deal out of instead is Team Canada. Oh, Danielle Smith is a traitor. 1%. There is so much more to the story here that they're not sharing. Why do you think independent media has blown up the way that it has? People are tired of being lied to. They're tired of only having the cherry-picked points. They're tired of not knowing the full story.
On November 25th, President Trump publicly warned that he would impose tariffs on Canada unless we take action on critical border issues such as cracking down on fentanyl, other illegal drugs, and illegal immigration. And I've been clear from the beginning that we must take President Trump's statements on border security seriously and to take action immediately, rather than focusing on inflaming the issue with rhetoric around retaliation. My fellow premiers have been asking for serious action on these issues as well. Today, U.S. President Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, Howard Lutnick, stated during his confirmation hearing that, quote, "If we are your biggest trading partner, show us the respect, shut your border. This is a separate tariff to create action from Mexico and action from Canada. As far as I know, they are acting swiftly, and if they execute it, there will be no tariff. And if they don't, then there will be." Let me say it again. The one thing that we can do this week, in just the next couple of days, to have the best chance to avoid tariffs is to show clear and unequivocal action to secure the border. This should start with the appointment of a Canadian border czar to work with the new American border czar to jointly crack down hard on fentanyl and illegal migrants. Is this likely to end the threat of tariffs entirely? I don't think so. I think there'll be other things that we will need to work on, and we will do so. But I am convinced, after speaking with dozens of elected U.S. representatives, administration officials, and the president himself, that this is the most important first step. Today, I reiterated this to the premiers, Minister LeBlanc, Minister Wilkinson, and Prime Minister Trudeau, and I hope it is acted on by the end of this week before February 1st. That is why why we also sent a Fox News crew to the Coots border today.
Like, that is how you get it done. But by doing that, the narcissist Justin Trudeau says, well, how come I didn't think about that? Hey, everybody, be mad at Danielle Smith. She's a traitor. It's just so childish and so stupid. And there's such a weird rhetoric around bending the knee to Trump. And it's like, these are our problems. These are Canada's problems. Do we want those problems in our country? Do we want bad people in our country? Do we want more people who are ODing in our country? No. No, we don't. We don't want any of those things. Canadian citizens have been sounding the alarm on this stuff for years, and nobody's listened to us at all. Then Donald Trump says something, and he's a powerful man, so people are starting to listen to him. This isn't bending the knee to Trump. This is just actually doing what is in Canada's best interest. But instead of acting in Canada's best interest, the Trudeau government does the most selfish thing in the world. Like the final sword through your heart. And they decide to prorogue Parliament during a time like this. I will tell you, though, that according to some news sources, much to my surprise, Jagmeet Singh has now joined Pierre Poilievre in calling on the Liberals to resume Parliament over the U.S. tariff threats. Trudeau still hasn't done that, and he probably won't do that, let's just be real, because his party is far more focused on launching a leadership race. What on earth?
How should Canada respond?
Well, I think we should start responding today. I think that we should publish for consultation a retaliation list. I think it should be massive, right? It should be $200 billion. That's not saying that we retaliate at $200 billion, but giving us like a menu, like a smorgasbord of choices. And we need to publish it now because when President Trump says America first, I believe him. And I believe that he doesn't care that much if Canadian politicians are jumping around, banging our fists on the table, etc. But he cares about Americans.
What is wrong with these people? Why is anybody focusing on running for the leadership of the Liberal Party right now when we have this on our plate? Are you serious?
Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here. I usually watch you guys when I'm getting ready in Ottawa. So,
well, thank you for watching.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something that I've heard you repeatedly say since the race began, and that's that Canadians have lost trust in the Liberal Party. You have held some very big roles in Trudeau's cabinet in the past 8 years. What responsibility are you willing to take for that?
Yeah, look, I think that this is something that we just have to acknowledge as the Liberal Party of Canada and as the government, is that, for the past couple of years in particular, Canadians have been telling us that things are unaffordable. They've been telling us that it's hard to make ends meet. And I think we eventually got there, but it took us too long to listen to what Canadians were needing and what they were saying to us. And so for me, I'm not too proud to say that we've done some really good things, but we've also made some mistakes. And I'm here to acknowledge that we need to do a better job of listening to Canadians and to responding to them when they need us to.
Did you bring concerns to the PMO, though? And I'm not asking you to, break cabinet solidarity here. I'm just curious, am I to interpret from that it was all Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, that he wasn't listening and responding?
No, I don't think it was just the Prime Minister. I think it was kind of collectively us as a government.
Wow, I cannot even believe that she just admitted that. This is why we shouldn't be having a leadership campaign, because, none of you guys are qualified. Please get wrecked and get out of my life.
We were very focused on the things that, we had promised to Canadians, but we didn't adapt quickly enough to the situation. And so for me, my brand and who I've always been as a politician is someone who listens to the grassroots. I've always been very involved in my community in Burlington and making sure that I'm hearing what they're saying and absolutely bringing that forward. And, part of politics is you bring ideas forward, you have those discussions. Sometimes your ideas win out, sometimes they don't. But what I really do care about is making sure that as politicians, we're listening to Canadians and the decisions that we're making are reflective of what they need in this moment, but also what they need into the future. And so that's the energy that I bring, that's the difference that I bring, and that's something that I'm really excited about.
The Trump tariff threat at this moment in time appears to be, the ballot box question. Who is going to be best to lead our country through that? And I ask this question with respect, but I think some Canadians might say, how are you going to take on Trump when you couldn't even get your message across to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau?
Well, I mean, there are many times when I did and was very successful at it, but I've also been the government
to your own
house
admission,
leader.
No one was listening.
Well, no,
really.
But I think there was lots, that's a democracy. You have a discussion, you have conversations. That's what makes a democracy special and important. But I was also the government house leader for the last 18 months. And so I've been able to stand up to bullies in the House of Commons. I'm able to negotiate with people with whom I don't necessarily see eye to eye.
Oh, yes, Karina, we remember you and your bullying ways.
And we must assure that no one in this House is standing with those who support white supremacy, who support Nazi views, who look to contribute and enable racist views. And Mr. Speaker, I would ask that all of us in this House use our words judiciously, including the member opposite who just yelled out something completely inappropriate, because all of us have reason to be here. And I would call on the members opposite not to stand with those who are sharing those views, because how does it feel?
So whether that is electricity from Ontario, whether it is oil and gas from Alberta.
Would you support turning off the power?
If we have to, then I think that's something that we have to show Americans, that we are friends, we are allies, we are partners, and we don't want to be in this trade dispute. At this point in time, actually what we don't need to be is worried, because I know that we are smarter and we are better able to handle this than the Americans. And at the same time, what we also need to do is to make sure that we are protecting Canadian jobs and businesses to weather this storm, so that when we eventually win this trade dispute, which we will, because we are smarter and we are better able and better capable to do this.
Yeah, those listening skills, I tell ya, they are just not that great. And Ms. Gould, you may think that you're smarter, but the lie detector test determines that that is a lie, because Canada is in no way, shape, or form in a strong position to handle this due to your government's policies that have absolutely bankrupted us, driven investment out of this country, and also made it so that for many Canadians, the opportunity to actually thrive and change the Canadian dream for the American dream is something that they think is quite enticing. Canada has high debt. We have high deficit spending. We have almost no room for economic stimulus because of your government. It wasn't like this before. We are already struggling with affordability. So tariffs and counter tariffs, oh boy, that's gonna hurt us so much more. Not to mention that we are still recovering from pandemic-related inflation. and the recession that a trade war will spark. So yeah, you know what? Your government can go ahead and print all the money that they want so that they can feel like the heroes while actually just driving us into the absolute hole. But you're not listening. You're not smarter. And you're actually talking real foolishly right now. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. I would love to know your thoughts on all of this. And I'm going to quickly shift over to a story that I thought was rather interesting. The Indigenous are finally standing up to the pro-Palestine protesters, which are still protesting for reasons I just really don't understand. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts down below. You can also give me a follow on other social media platforms as well.
You don't understand.